Imagine waking up one morning with the crushing realization that nobody out there is thinking about you as much as you think. The truth is uncomfortable, even painful. People are too preoccupied with their own lives, their own struggles, their own anxieties, to truly care about what you are doing, how you look, or whether you succeed or fail. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French existentialist, once said that man is condemned to be free, meaning that we are ultimately responsible for defining the meaning of our lives in a world that is indifferent to us. And today, when the digital age magnifies every insecurity through likes, comments, and fleeting attention, this truth has never been more urgent. But Sartre is not alone in confronting this uncomfortable fact. Contemporary philosopher Agnes Callard reminds us that philosophy is not just about ancient puzzles. It is about the choices we make every single day, the way we live, and the fears that paralyze us. She argues that our endless worrying about whether people admire us, whether we are successful enough, whether we are seen, is often just noise that distracts us from what truly matters. In this video, we will uncover a hard but liberating lesson. Nobody really cares about you in the way you think they do. And paradoxically, once you embrace this fact, you become free. Free from anxiety, free from comparison, free from the constant need to please others. Today we will explore Sartre's existential truths and Callard's modern insights in 7 powerful parts. Let us begin with part 1, the myth of other people's judgment. Part 1, the myth of other people's judgment. We live in a society built on appearances. From the moment we step outside, we feel the invisible weight of eyes upon us, how we dress, how we speak, how successful we appear. Social media intensifies this, turning every action into a performance for an imagined audience. But here's the paradox. The audience is not really watching. People are scrolling, distracted, absorbed in their own little dramas. Sartre called this the gaze, the feeling that we are objects in the eyes of others. He suggested that this gaze can trap us, making us act not as we truly are, but as we wish to be seen. And yet, Sartre also revealed the emptiness of this fear. Those others who we imagine are judging us are themselves haunted by the same insecurities. They are too busy worrying about their own failures to care about yours. Agnes Callard's work reinforces this idea from a modern lens. She argues that our obsession with how we appear to others is a distraction from the deeper work of becoming ourselves. Instead of constantly worrying about whether people notice our mistakes, Callard urges us to ask, are we truly pursuing the life we want? In other words, the myth of other people's judgment is not just an error, it is a form of self-imprisonment. When you realize that nobody cares as much as you fear, you gain a kind of radical freedom. You can take risks, experiment, learn, and fail without the crushing burden of imagined critics. The truth is this: people will forget your mistakes faster than you think, and they will move on because they must. They have their own anxieties to carry. This realization, while harsh, is the first step toward reclaiming your energy. Stop wasting your life in the prison of other people's imagined opinions. Sartre would say, choose yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. Part 2. The trap of endless worry. If the first illusion is that everyone is watching you, the second is even more destructive. The illusion that worrying will somehow change the outcome. Sartre described human life as a project, a constant becoming where our choices define us. But instead of acting, many of us remain paralyzed by worry, endless rehearsals for moments that never come. Think about how much time you have wasted worrying about things that never happened. The embarrassing moment you replayed in your head 100 times. Nobody else remembers it. The failure you thought would destroy your reputation? Forgotten. The conversations you rehearsed but never had? They dissolved into silence. Worry is a thief that steals both present joy and future possibility. Agnes Callard offers a modern extension to Sartre's insight. She argues that our worries often masquerade as responsibility. We tell ourselves that worrying is being prepared, that it shows we care. But in truth, worry is rarely productive. It does not build, it does not transform, it does not act. Instead, it consumes. As Callard points out, what we need is not endless worrying, but deliberate choosing. The courage to act even when we are uncertain. Here lies the liberating truth. The world is too chaotic, too vast, too indifferent for your worries to control. Whether you obsess over every possible outcome or not, life will unfold unpredictably. Sartre would remind us that this unpredictability is the essence of existence. It is not something to fear. It is the very space in which freedom resides. When you let go of the illusion that worry gives you control, you open yourself to the real power you do have. The power to act in this moment, to create meaning, to shape your own path. This is not about recklessness. It is about refusing to waste your one short life in cycles of fear that change nothing. Worry less, act more. Because in the end, nobody is watching as closely as you imagine, and the only person keeping score is you. Part 3. The freedom of indifference. One of Sartre's most striking contributions to philosophy was his insistence that the universe itself is indifferent to us. There is no script written in the stars, no cosmic plan where each of our lives fits into some predetermined order. For many, this realization feels terrifying. If nothing is designed, then nothing matters, right? But Sartre flips this fear into empowerment. If nothing matters inherently, then everything we do acquires meaning because we chose it. Now think of what that implies for our daily worries. If the universe itself is not obsessing over you, why should you assume that other people are? The freedom of indifference means this: you are not the center of anyone else's universe, and that liberates you to build your own. Agnes Callard echoes this truth when she speaks about aspiration. For her, living a meaningful life does not come from external validation or cosmic guarantees. It comes from choosing to aspire, to pursue a good that is not yet fully understood. People may not care about what you are doing now. They may not notice your efforts, but that indifference gives you space to become. It is in this private struggle, unnoticed and uncelebrated, where true growth occurs. So instead of fearing indifference, embrace it. It means you are free to experiment, free to fail, free to redirect your life at any moment. Indifference is not a curse, but a gift. It removes the suffocating weight of other people's expectations and hands you the pen to write your own story. Remember, nobody cares enough to stop you. That is your freedom. Part 4. The burden of comparison. One of the greatest thieves of peace in modern life is comparison. Social media has turned every person into both a performer and a spectator, endlessly measuring themselves against curated images of others. Sartre warned against bad faith, living a life of self-deception, pretending that we are fixed roles instead of free beings. Comparison is one of the clearest examples of this bad faith. When you compare yourself constantly, you deny your own freedom by pretending you must measure up to standards set by others. You live not as yourself, but as a reflection of someone else's imagined success. This is why comparison feels so exhausting. It is an endless race with no finish line, because there will always be someone richer, more attractive, more successful, or more admired. Agnes Callard brings this into sharper focus. She reminds us that aspiration is not about beating others. It is about becoming better than your former self. The only meaningful comparison is with the person you were yesterday. But this wisdom is hard to practice in a world where metrics of worth are everywhere. Likes, followers, grades, salaries. The danger is that we confuse visibility with value, attention with achievement. Here's the hard truth. Nobody is watching you closely enough to validate your worth through comparison. Those you envy are themselves trapped in their own cycles of envy, their own silent struggles. The people you imagine are winning are also haunted by insecurity. Once again, nobody cares as much as you think, and that realization should break the chains of comparison. Your path is your own. The burden of comparison lifts only when you accept that your story is not meant to be identical to anyone else's. Sartre would say, authenticity means choosing your own essence. Callard would add, aspiration means allowing yourself to grow toward something you cannot yet fully define. Either way, comparison blinds you to freedom. Let it go. Part 5. The courage to be seen as you are. If nobody truly cares as much as you fear, then why do we still perform, still wear masks, still hide behind appearances? Because deep down we crave approval. We want to be admired, respected, loved. But the tragedy is this. When we hide who we are in order to be liked, we trade authenticity for illusion. Sartre called this living in bad faith, pretending to be something fixed, denying the freedom that defines us. The courage to be seen as you are requires facing rejection. Not everyone will understand your choices. Not everyone will approve of your values. Some may even laugh at your failures. But remember, their judgment is fleeting. They will move on and you will remain with yourself. The cost of hiding is far greater than the cost of being briefly misunderstood. Agnes Callard's reflections on aspiration reinforce this point. She explains that genuine growth often looks awkward, even embarrassing, because we are reaching towards something we do not yet fully embody. When you are learning, stumbling, or struggling, you might look foolish to others, but that is the very sign you are alive, becoming, transforming. If you hide to avoid embarrassment, you also avoid the possibility of growth. Here's the paradox. When you dare to be seen as you truly are, you will discover that most people are not paying nearly as much attention as you thought. And those who are, the ones who accept you in your realness, are the only ones worth keeping close. Everyone else, they will pass, fade, forget. To live authentically is to embrace exposure, to risk being misunderstood, to carry the courage of showing up in a world that is not watching as closely as you feared. In the end, the only gaze that truly matters is your own. Part 6. The weight of responsibility. If nobody truly cares as much as you believe, then the question emerges, who carries the weight of your life? Sartre's answer is clear, you do. Freedom is not just liberation, it is responsibility. He famously said, "Man is condemned to be free." This means there is no escaping the burden of choice. Every action you take, every path you refuse, every compromise you accept, these are not dictated by destiny or by the opinions of others. They are your decisions, and you alone must live with them. This truth can feel overwhelming. Without external scripts to guide us, we sometimes long for someone else to tell us what to do. We imagine that the world or society or other people are watching and judging, and so we conform. But Sartre warns, this conformity is a form of self-deception, an attempt to hide from the fact that our lives are ours alone to create. Agnes Callard offers a modern complement to this existential responsibility. She points out that aspiration is a project of taking responsibility for your own transformation. You cannot outsource growth. You cannot wait for validation. You must choose the path of becoming, even when the road is uncertain. The philosopher is not someone who has all the answers, but someone willing to live in the tension of the questions. Responsibility, then, is not a punishment but a call. It is the realization that since nobody cares enough to carry your life for you, the task falls squarely on your shoulders. This is frightening, but it is also the source of dignity. To live responsibly is to live fully awake. It is to stop blaming others, stop waiting for approval, and instead stand firm in the freedom you cannot escape. Part 7. The liberation of authentic living. What then? Does it mean to live authentically once you have shed the illusions of judgment, worry, comparison, and fear? Sartre would say it means living in full awareness of your freedom, making choices not to please others but to define your own existence. Authentic living is not glamorous. It is not always rewarded. It does not guarantee applause. But it is the only way to inhabit your life fully, without regret. Agnes Callard deepens this by describing aspiration as a journey without certainty. You will not know in advance whether your choices will lead to success or failure, joy or disappointment. But that uncertainty is what makes the project meaningful. You are not simply executing a plan. You are becoming someone new. Through the act of striving to live authentically is to accept that nobody cares in the way you imagined, and that is good news. It frees you to love without calculation, to create without fear, to speak your truth without rehearsing how others will respond. It means replacing the anxiety of being watched with the joy of being alive. It means remembering that every moment you spend hiding, comparing, or worrying is a moment lost to the only life you have. The liberation of authenticity is not found in being admired, but in being real. It is found in waking up each day and choosing again and again to live as yourself, even when nobody notices, even when nobody applauds. Because the truth is, authenticity is its own reward. Ending. So let us return to the title of this video. Nobody cares about you. At first, it sounds harsh, almost cruel. But look again. It is not an insult, it is liberation. Nobody is tracking your every move. Nobody is judging you as intensely as you judge yourself. Nobody is carrying the burden of your choices. And that means you are free. Sartre reminds us that freedom is both a gift and a responsibility. We must choose. We must act. We must define ourselves. Agnes Callard reminds us that philosophy is not about escaping this condition, but embracing it, turning it into the fuel for aspiration and growth. So stop worrying so much about nothing. Stop wasting your short, precious life rehearsing for an audience that is not even watching. Step into the freedom of indifference, the dignity of responsibility, the joy of authenticity. Because once you accept that nobody cares in the way you feared, you will finally understand the paradox. You can now begin to live a life worth caring about.